If you're looking for gorgeous, custom-built homes, an incredible equestrian community, private extensive trail systems, wow, do we have two communities you've got to be sure and check out. But stay tuned because we're also going to let you in on what people are whispering as they do decide to pass on both of these communities.
Hey, we're Jake and Megan Friedel, your real estate professionals and guides to Southern Denver living, and we cannot wait to show you these two awesome communities just 15 minutes from Castle Rock.
Welcome to Keene Ranch. Sitting up next to 1,500 acres of open space, this community has gorgeous views everywhere you look. And as you can see behind me, we're not talking any open space. It is meticulously maintained. And this is really plug and play for horse people. Though you do not have to have horses to live here, most of the homes have gorgeous barns, stables, and tons of acreage. Starting as small as 2 acres, some of them work up to 35. Your typical home here is 4 to 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, just under 6,000 square feet total. That's including the basement, which most of them have here. You got a really wide spread of year for when this is built. They start in 1997 and finish as recently as just a couple years ago. But the median is about 2002. And what that gets you is these are mostly new enough that they have that beautiful modern layout, lots of open spaces, but many of them haven't really been updated since they were built, which means they're still gorgeous, nothing crazy old, but they're missing some of those super modern, beautiful finishing touches that you might want to add yourself. These are the kind of homes where I see all the time the double dishwashers, the double ovens, and just the other day I saw double stovetops, so that was a new one for me. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the HOA in Keene Ranch, because there is a lot that you can do here. You can have your outbuildings, including a guest house. You can have your stables and your barns, but all of this needs to go through an ARC, an Architectural Review Committee. They're gonna tell you what size it needs to be, how it needs to look. All of your fencing is gonna need to be this wooden split rail fencing, that kind of thing. And if you're finally feeling like, oh, I'm so excited to have the space to store my RV, to store my boat, to store my horse trailer, yes, you've got the space for that. Just make sure you have indoor storage for it at all times. So when we're talking about what those people who've decided to pass on Keene Ranch and Bell Mountain Ranch, things that they are whispering about when they say no, it's usually that it's a little hoity-toity. That HOA community, and though it's not a gated community, it does kind of have a little bit of that feel. So a lot of people who are looking for that rural freedom that comes with the space that you have out here feel like it's lacking, and those people tend to go to Sedalia. But for the people who this is a fit for, they love it. Gorgeous sun sites, a tight-knit community, there's a lot to love.
Well, that's a wrap for Keene Ranch. Let's go check out Bell Mountain. The key differences in these two communities: Keene Ranch is more set up for privacy and seclusion, whereas Bell Mountain is more set up for a community feel. My clients tell me that the horse boarding facility is amazing. You've got indoor and outdoor riding facilities, and you can board your horses there. And a little secret, you can actually use it if you're from Keene Ranch. But you have an awesome community center. The community at the Equestrian Center is amazing. You won't find any of the drama that you do at a lot of boarding facilities, and a really cool community that gathers together to do fun stuff. Now luckily we have clients that live in this neighborhood, so we know all the dirty little secrets. So for one, you're more exposed to the highway, and there's a train between Bell Mountain community and the highway that rolls through about 4 times per day. So if you don't like listening to or seeing the train, you gotta make sure you're way back on the east side and it won't be a problem. But I know my client says he really loves watching the train with his little boys, so maybe it's kind of a cool thing. In addition, we do have a pretty strict HOA, much like Keene Ranch, maybe even stricter. So you can't have a vehicle parked in front of your house for more than 48 hours, or you're getting a nasty gram from the association telling you you gotta move it into the garage. In addition, the association built one of the roads in here, and they built it too narrow for Colorado Department of Transportation standards, so the county does not maintain the road, the association has to maintain it, and they don't do the best job. While Keene Ranch has a median home value of about $1.75 million, Bell Ranch is down at about $1.4 million. So the key differences there are we have smaller lots, so the houses are a little closer together. Again, I talked about that exposure to the highway and the train that comes through. And then the houses are about, on average, 1,000 square feet smaller. In addition, not all lots are approved for horses, so make sure your real estate professional finds you one that is. We've got a similar age of home here as the Keene Ranch, starting back in 1998 and as recent as a couple years ago. So we do have big, beautiful, modern homes. Some of those older homes are probably going to need some of your finishing touches because the materials they put into these beautiful houses are so nice that they last a long time, even longer than style. A couple things to be aware of here is that you do have tons of nature. So you're going to drive into Bell Mountain Community and see a herd of elk sitting in the field often, but you're also going to watch your animals and want to bring them inside in the evening times because we have more dangerous sorts of wildlife out here as well. And you're going to want to beware of the speed limit on these little roads, not because there's a lot of police activity, but because of the animals. We had another client who hit an elk last month and totaled their vehicle. So beware, keep the headlights on, and make sure you're being careful. Both of these communities have great access to downtown Castle Rock, which is an awesome community. Make sure you check out our video all about Castle Rock. Bell Mountain has a little better access to a couple things much closer though. You can drive just up the frontage road and find a restaurant, a bar, and a couple of kids' activities available to you. Keene Ranch a little more secluded. Again, that story of a little more community versus a little more privacy.
So Jake, what was your experience like being new to a rural community? What kind of surprised you and what did you learn through that?
Yeah, so we went from total suburbs to way out in the middle of nowhere, 40 acres living, and I was surprised at the lack of people generally. I was so far from my friends. It was really hard for me as a kid.
Yeah, I remember that feeling isolating too, but you really avoid that problem here because you're really close to everything. So that's kind of a nice thing about these communities is you still get the rural, but you're not super far removed.
Yeah, and each one has around 300 homes, so really there's plenty of kids around, and it might be a total case of like quality versus quantity. Like if you're the kind of person who wants to live out in one of these communities, you might find other people that are of the same mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
Megan, what have your clients reported being a surprise difficulty about living on land?
I think a lot of people move to a rural community just excited about it without really understanding all of the maintenance that goes in. So you have these big pieces of properties that really need specialized tools or a lot of money to maintain. Specifically, Keene Ranch and Bell Mountain Ranch, I've seen scrub oak be a big problem. So that stuff just grows like wildfire, and it can be, if there's too much of it, it can be not that attractive. Another thing that I've heard people talk about in any rural community, when you have a well, that well water just kind of being, sulfury, having a little bit of buildup, it can be harder on appliances and you can kind of have that like ring around the bathtub.
Yeah, I think we can take care of that with some water filtration. You can filter anything out of water these days.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, when we buy the property, we have some awesome folks who test wells out here. You test the functionality of the well itself, you test how many gallons per minute comes out, and you test the taste and the quality of the water, which it's important to actually continue testing the quality of the water on an annual basis in case something goes wrong.
Yeah, definitely. And like a well that goes in that inspection process, when you do that well test, one that is really bad is going to cost a lot of money. That's a huge project, but Bell Mountain and Keene Ranch at this point in time are really not having those kind of issues.
Yeah, and Bell Mountain recently did that huge project. They worked with the city of Castle Rock. They re-drilled the well. They brought in a 12-inch water main through the whole community and some storage tanks. So Bell Mountain has incredibly secure water. How about for septic?
For septic tanks, there's not too much involved in that. You do need to get it pumped every, 3 years, they say, sometimes a little sooner. But really, it's just making sure you're not flushing junk down the toilet. You got to be a little more careful about that. Maybe not putting as much grease in the sink, which, you should be doing those things anyways. I know we don't do that at our house, so not too big of an issue.
Again, we have great resources for testing the functionality of a septic tank, and we do have to get the county to inspect it in order to transfer the ownership of the septic from owner to owner at the closing.
Yep.
Okay, here's an interesting one. Let's talk about fire danger and mitigation in these communities.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I remember when we first both started working a lot more in these communities, and we realized that there is only one way in and one way out of there. And I had a buyer who had some questions about that and what that really meant. And so I ended up looking into where the closest fire department was, where the closest fire hydrants were. And we also found out that those sprinklers that come out of the ceiling that help with fire, in the event of a fire, those are present in every home in Keene and Bell Mountain.
Yeah, and what's cool is Bell Mountain is actually building another road to exit the community coming soon. Let's hope it goes better than the other road problem that they're having.
Yeah, definitely. In our many years of being real estate agents, we've had some really amazing experiences out here. We've gotten to see all kinds of custom-built homes, and they really are a variety of styles and beautiful features. We can tell you about it, you can look through pictures, but you really can't experience it without being inside yourself. So if you want to get inside any of these homes, we're your folks. Give us a call and we can get you a private tour to some of these homes today.